Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for frame rate is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
It's Frame Rate! Welcome to Frame Rate episode 117. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, I'm Brian Brushwood, sitting across the country from Tom Merritt. How have you been, Tom?
I've been great on this side of the country. How are things on your side of the country, Brian?
They're slightly warmer? I don't know. I got nothing for you, man. Hey, someone in the chat room said this was last week's intro, and that can't be. What did I play last week? It was something else, right?
Last week, you played the thing that I am pulling up in the dock right now, which was, I don't know, something else. I don't see a link.
Okay, good. But it wasn't this.
Sure it was
because,
so I posted this on Twitter because you posted it after Frame Rate.
Yeah, correct. Okay, no, they must have been thinking of like the NSFW show pre-show that I did, because that's when we discovered it last week. That is a music video from Biting Elbows called Bad MFer. Only you have to spell out Bad MFer. It's on Vimeo, and it is amazing. It's super hyper violent. If you don't like violence, you're not going to enjoy watching it. But the entire thing is an escape from a corporate place where a guy's been held prisoner, and he shoots a bunch of people. The whole thing is shot with a GoPro mounted to the guy's face, so it's a first-person action sequence. Like I would love watching an entire movie made by this. In fact, during this whole thing, there's like weird science fiction elements because he picks up a gizmo that once it's dipped into water, teleports him to different areas. He fights all these folks. It's absolutely amazing. I loved it, loved it, loved it.
Yeah, and the coolest thing about it is there's one point early on where he goes down into the basement. It's right before he picks up the gun for the first time, where I actually, the first time I saw this, wasn't sure if I was like, is this video game footage? Like it just,
really?
It kind of crossed the uncanny valley for a second there. I think because the light got kind of dark, and I'm like, oh wait, maybe I messed up. Maybe this is just a video game intro. And then I'm like, oh no, that guy he's stepping on is a real person. Like,
and this is great.
It's
like,
crazy.
The whole thing's clearly shot in Russia. Like at one point, they zap over. They're running across decommissioned MiGs. Really, really well done. And I guess this is a sequel. There was another one that's similar to it, so I'm gonna have to check that one out as well.
In Russia, video games shoot you. Just keep that in mind.
That sounds like a good segue.
This just in, the big story.
So here's the thing about the big story. It's always going to be about Netflix. Oh, wait, not this week. It's going to be about you. No, this week it's about who? Oh, HBO. See, we have more than one recurring theme now. That's the progress we've made.
I'll tell you, can we just officially declare that the only recurring fling that you and I are going to have is that we're going to keep coming back to whatever the hell we're interested in the world of entertainment and media and the changing shape of the digital revolution. Can we just sum that up? Does that work?
Yeah, because and the thing is, there weren't as many things to choose from. They're getting more all the time. We're talking about HBO again this week because the HBO CEO, which is Mr. Plepler, Richard Plepler, was speaking, and according to a Reuters report, said that HBO has the right model today, but it could evolve, he said. Perhaps turning into a fish that walks on land, or possibly into a $50 a month service that would be packaged in with your broadband internet for an extra $10 or $15. No, he's saying you pay $50 a month for your internet service, and then you pay $10 or $15 on top of that, and you would be able to watch HBO Go from your internet service provider.
So in other words, it could be the kind of thing where it's like you still have to pay the cable company something, but whether you're paying for digital broadband or I guess assuming, yeah, it wouldn't be cable if you have a different provider, of course. See, I live in the world where like broadband and cable are synonymous. I think
you kind of hit on the unintentional idea of this, which is you won't have to pay the cable company's television fees to get it. You would pay the cable company's broadband fees, but HBO is going to partner with cable television companies that provide internet because those are the people they're trying not to piss off. Right. We know that HBO gets a lot of money from affiliate fees and a lot of virtual money from the free advertising that cable companies give to HBO on their cable systems. Right. So they don't want to lose that. But if they go to the Comcast or Time Warner and say, hey, what if on your internet side, because you're bleeding people out all the time, what if on your internet side you could rake in a couple extra bucks by selling that same HBO package that you sell on the TV side to the cord cutters? What if we cut you in that way? Will that anger you? I think that's what he's trying to get at.
And do you think this is like an intentional, like floating some ideas out there to see what I don't know how sophisticated people are in real life. The conspiracy theorists believe that you could, craft a reason like I'll drop this hint and it'll be picked up on the media and then we'll get feedback on whether people believe X, Y, or Z. I don't think anyone's that sophisticated. I think this might be the kind of thing that essentially what he's saying is like, look, we're not idiots. We understand this is what everyone in the world wants, but we have certain entanglements. We're based on this older model and this is how we make our bread and butter. We have existing clients who we don't want to piss off, but let me say that we are aware of it, and my guess is something will happen at some point. But here's one way I could see it happening. Take that for what it's worth. But this
Brian,
is certainly...
I think it actually is more sophisticated.
Do you?
In a way, yeah. I think that this is him having discussions with those cable and internet people and kind of getting lukewarm responses like, okay, yeah, maybe we should, okay, let's revise, let's look at that. Let's look at the numbers. I think this is his way of saying, well, I'm just going to be honest with Reuters and go, we're looking at this. We're not rushing into it, but we're looking at this and kind of flush out some of the response. See if some of the people that aren't in the room at those meetings come out and go, yeah, actually, why didn't you tell us you were talking to him about that? That's great. Or vice versa. They say, absolutely not. We never want to do that. But it may kind of just nudge the issue along.
All right, so what is the over-under? Like, we're both in agreement that at some point you're going to be able to get unbundled HBO. You don't have to have cable. You'll be able to cut the cord. You probably will have to pay, they probably will have a sweetheart deal where the cheapest way to get it would be, get your broadband through these same cable providers, which all of a sudden is more expensive because we're offering faster broadband or broadband caps or whatever, so they can make up the difference, and it will cost this amount. But the question is when. If you're going to be the bookmaker on this, what's the split date that you'll take bets either way?
2016.
Holy cow, 3 years?
Yeah.
I'm going to say it'll happen. This is tough because what I want to say is it'll definitely be announced beforehand, but I can't vouch for the implementation. Give me a specific date in 2016. I'll tell you before or after
February
for the first
3rd.
service. February 3rd at the beginning of 2016? All right, I'll take that. I'll go. It'll be available somewhere. A pilot program will be available before February 3rd, 2016.
All right, so you get up to February 2nd.
Yes,
and
correct.
Available means
that there's
you can't
some
go
customer.
and buy it and subscribe to it that day, right?
Not me.
Oh, they announced it on the 2nd, so Brian wins.
No. Not announcement. Someone physically can buy the service. Maybe it's not available in my area, whatever. Somebody can pay it and buy it before February 3rd.
I like this. Chat room, we rely on you to keep us honest and remind us because both of us are going to forget as soon as we move on to another big story.
Stop everything. It's another big story.
What were we talking about? Oh, Nielsen families. Yeah, we talked about that last week. And then almost immediately after the show, I saw this Wired story. It's actually a big, long story of like the new rules of television in the internet age. But rule number one is the Nielsen family is dead. And this is basically long argument that Nielsen's bending over backwards to try to catch up with the race, but the race is going to pass him by because what gets ad execs excited is engagement on social networks like Twitter. Do you buy this argument?
First of all, no, I don't believe that the Nielsen family is dead, and Nielsen is too savvy a company to not adjust and pivot to the new way that people to respond both to the way people interact with their television, but more importantly to the new types of engagement that advertisers want to see out of it, right? So, they're going to start tracking stuff like whether people notice product placements or how much the buzz around iPhones goes up after a new episode of or the new season of House of Cards comes out, or all these little things that they will become more savvy. And yes, the traditional model of the Nielsen family will not be the way that we're going to do it. But as far as are they, is it dead? I mean, whatever, sure. I think it's interesting that advertisers are asking, not like, it's kind of weird to me that advertisers no longer care how many people actually watch the episode. What they care about is how many people hear their friends talking about the episode. So all of a sudden, if what they want, especially if their item is placed as a plot point or something like that, I don't know. I just feel like we're narrowing in on giving advertisers more specifically what they want while also giving consumers more of the programming in the style that they want. So it's win-win.
The Nielsen family is dead is a great headline. Tom Vanderbilt, well done. I don't know if you picked that headline, but makes an awesome graphic. But this next web story kind of gives it the lie, which is the number of tweets about a TV program is closely correlated with the show's rating. More people tweeting about it, bigger rating. And here's the thing. Maybe there's all kinds of other arguments of why the Nielsen family might go away as an important object if Nielsen doesn't keep up. But Nielsen has been keeping up. They were very good with the DVR. They are now going to rate web video alongside and give the capability to networks to package it in with broadcast video. They seem to be keeping pace. And the thing that's not going to die is people needing to know how many eyeballs saw the thing, right?
Right.
Because while, sure, engagement is important and an extra element that we can throw in there, and click-through is important, and that's a new element that we can throw in there, just the number of eyeballs is the first thing everybody's going to want to know. How many people are watching the show? Then we can talk about these other things and whether it's right for my ad buy or not.
I don't know that I 100% agree with that. I think from a practical standpoint, I think you're right. I think that that will never go away as an important metric. We need to know how many people watch stuff if we're going to spend our ad dollars on it. But I can see a world only 2-3 years away where that is like the third or fourth question they ask after their money is spent. Their first question being, how many Twitter impressions did we make? How did the Facebook, how many people mentioned this specific, placed item from the episode? How's our sales doing? What happened to our web traffic? And then also how many people watched the original? Because when we enter a world where you can do a thing and it makes and more people know about it because they heard about it from a friend than actually saw it when it happens, I can see advertisers increasingly trying to chase that result instead of the mechanism that they assume would bring them there. As far as the headline,
right. Actually, the number one is always going to be, is my ad going to be effective? Am I going to see an uptick in sales or leads or whatever it is I'm after? Brand impression, brand loyalty, brand awareness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I still hold to the fact that the first what they're going to say is, which shows have the biggest audience? Let's start there. Which shows have the biggest audience in the demo I'm trying to reach? Which of those shows have the best engagement? Because large audiences proxy for the wide engagement. And you're going to occasionally have those shows that have big engagement, low audience. And those will be outliers, though. Those won't be common.
I wonder how much is going to change as, because, of course, one thing Google really wants to do and that YouTube has been pretty bad about up until now is linking advertisers specific to audiences on specific shows. We talked about this before. I could see maybe in the next couple of years the equivalent of like a music genome project for viral videos and for demographics to where your first ad spend is more expensive but extraordinarily targeted. Like we'll say your first $1,000 you only reach 800 people, but they'll be the 800 people most perfectly targeted. Your second 1,000 you reach twice as more, but they're less and less targeted as you go farther and farther out, to where I don't know, like if Google is able to pull off ad specific scalability, then all of a sudden it doesn't even matter how many people watch it, because if it's what matters is the right people. Are you wasting your money? Like, what's the old saying? It's like, I know 80% of my ad budget is wasted. I just don't know which 80%. Like, we may enter an age where that's not a concern anymore, and all of a sudden it genuinely doesn't matter.
That's already true, Brian. I mean, that's what viewers per viewing household numbers are about. That's what a lot of these slice and dice numbers are, which is, okay, you got a great number of 1834s. That's fine. I'm selling that's products.
Okay.
So I don't care how many of those 18 to what?
Yeah, I mean, just saying 18 to 34 is not nearly specific enough. I'm talking about a micro level to where you're able to.
That's what I was just saying was, you start with, okay, you got a lot of 18 to 34s. I need males. You got a lot of 1834 males? Great. I need them with disposable income above $70,000. You got those? Okay, great. I need them to I need a high concentration. I mean, that's how we sold at Tech TV. We sold on that concentration of the right people. There's nothing new there, but it always starts with the largest audience. I don't think you can argue that a large audience is not going to be.
Well, okay, but think about this. I'm saying we could be entering an age, and this is me putting on my bogus futurist hat and just making wild guesses. But the general idea right now is like, how many people saw my ad for the latest replacement to Propecia, right? And they're like, well, 10 million people saw it. Everyone's going to know about your Propecia 2, follicle boogaloo drug, right? But then it's like, we can enter an age where it's like, why do 10 million people need to know about that when really all you really need are the 12,000 people who found out that from their doctor that they definitely are bald?
Right, that's what I just said. Those numbers already have existed for a long time. That's already the way people buy ads. And once you get into that demo, you want the one with the largest that reaches the largest number of those people. That's all I'm saying.
No. What you have right now with the traditional model is you have a correlation. You're like, well, we suspect 24 to 28 is when people find out that they're going bald, and those people tend to like video games. So let's buy on G4. Like, that's nothing like what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like they know for a fact that this person visited their doctor in the last 6 weeks and was given this kind of diagnosis. They're the only people who mattered, and then they're specifically targeted. Nothing like that's been remotely possible before. But we're entering the age when Google is placing the ads, and of course they're reading your Gmail account, and they know what conversations you've had about these things. I think what I'm trying to describe is different. I could be failing at explaining it, but what I'm saying is it could enter an age where all of a sudden you don't want 10 million people to know about your Propecia 2. You just want the 12,000 people who are in a position to buy it this specific month.
All you're saying is the slice and dice is going to get narrower, and I totally agree with you there. That's what big data is all about, is being able to pinpoint with greater and greater accuracy. But it's been a long nobody buys ads to reach a mass audience most of the time. But people want to be hitting those right people. That's been around forever. You're just, and I agree with you here. You're just saying that the target, we're able to target finer and finer over time as we learn more. And all I'm saying is, yes, absolutely. And they're going to want the show or the thing that reaches the largest number in that finely targeted number.
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying is at that point it stops being about the show, because all of a sudden when your ads are specific to the user, and it doesn't matter, like as long as you've got the user list, you don't need to even know what shows they're watching. You just need to know that your ads will automatically be matched to those individual users, which is why I think we're entering. I guess that's what I suppose the change is.
And I guess what I'm saying is that's kind of what they're trying to do already. It's not like somebody. Yes and no. Sometimes they will not buy that, and maybe that won't change, actually. They won't buy a show because of the concept. They say, like, I don't think help stuff is really that interesting. We're not going to buy it, even though it's your highest rated content, right?
Right.
But most of the time the argument is, I want to reach this audience. How do I reach them? I don't really care what the shows are. Right. And Derek has told me this before, which is they go for a package. They're like, put together a package of different shows and different networks that will reach these kinds of people.
Right. Well, and the reason that you have to have packages.
The hope here is that with big data, that concept rejection where the people are like, and the bosses are like, we just don't think that's very cool, so don't put that in the package because we can reach plenty of people otherwise. That fudging factor goes away, and it becomes there becomes less emotion in it, and it becomes a mathematician's game.
Right. Well, and you nailed it, because what I think I'm projecting into the future is the idea that the packages is something that a human has to touch, and they make it an art, not a science. They're like, oh, I'd imagine people like this and that, and then the emotion, you're right, shouldn't factor into it. There'll be a time when it'll be the algorithm, and the algorithm's right. You describe exactly the type of people who need it, and you never find out what shows it's on because you're buying from the network, and
that's where I think this article is wrong, to bring it back full circle, because Nielsen is positioned to be the company that can do that for you. Maybe they'll fail. Maybe they just won't be very good at it. Maybe a ComScore or somebody else will come in, swoop in, and take them out. That's a totally different issue. But saying like, we just want to have lots of people on Twitter talking about it. We don't care if the ads are targeted, and I don't think that's really the way it's going to go. That's just going to be one of the factors.
You're. I mean, you're certainly right in that. After a rich tradition of 70 years of doing it one way, it's not going to flip overnight. But man, is that an inefficient, weird way to go about it? As soon as they can.
No, we just talked about the most efficient way to go about it possible.
No. We're talking across purposes, but that's all right. I want to move on.
Let's go to yet another big story.
All right.
Tuck in your bootstraps. It's yet another big story.
Which unfortunately is kind of the same story. But we'll try not to get distracted into the same argument again. Basically, the upfronts are happening, and people not buying the broadcast networks, they're buying the cable networks. That's been a trend that has been coming. Fox saw ratings for 18 to 49-year-olds declined 23%. ABC's ratings for the same group declined 8%. And All Things D reports that Nickelodeon's own cable channels actually are declining because people are watching the shows on Netflix. And there was an analysis done by a research group, I think it was Berenstein, that showed that in Netflix households, viewership of Nickelodeon went down because they were watching the shows on Netflix instead, because if they had kids. So a lot of the ad money is starting to go to the web. Now, aside the future of the ad industry, bad thing for Netflix, good thing for Netflix.
Well, it certainly puts it certainly puts Netflix in the firing line, because as I read this, the first thing that popped into my head was, and first of all, you're talking to a guy who has 3 girls, and I mean, one of course is an infant right now, but she's in the room. I anticipate a full decade of them doing nothing but watching Netflix over and over and over again. And if I'm Nickelodeon, I can see a future where part of your deal with Netflix says, look, we need one bit of dynamic content that we can inject, and basically asking for one ad, because if we want to reach these kids are just watching the same thing over and over and over again. And in a world where branding begins at age 4, when they need to start training you that McDonald's is better than the other guys, it's too valuable a headspace, because that is how you create lifelong associations with Coca-Cola, with all these mega brands. And with that being, I got to imagine that I could see 5 years from now, for kids programming especially, saying, look, still $8 a month for stream all you want. It's just that we put one ad, 30-second ad in everything, or it's $20 a month to go without. Something that will balance the scales so that it's more worth it for them to take that hit and have all that content on Netflix. Because I agree, for right now, it is bad, because not only does the content get viewed easily and has no ads, but the brand of Nickelodeon, my kids can watch SpongeBob. I don't know if SpongeBob is on Netflix. Let's say it is. They can watch SpongeBob all day long and never know that it's a Nickelodeon show. Never even know there is a channel called Nickelodeon. But if you run a network, you want to build that value at a young age.
Yeah, and it's the difference between being a producer of content and being a network operator. And the squeeze is going to be felt more and more. Whether these ratings from Berenstein are accurate, some people are criticizing them, saying like, oh, you're slicing and dicing it in a way that makes it seem like a bigger problem than it is. Viacom's not out there complaining. Viacom's been saying they've been seeing ratings upticks because of their deal with Netflix. So who knows? You can make numbers say a lot of things if you're good with them. But the squeeze is on the network operators. If Netflix has shows, like you say, you nailed it, Brian, those kids don't care where the show came from. And the people who are creating the shows, the production companies that create the shows, whether they're part of the network or not, they really don't care either. They just want people to consume the shows, because that means that more shows get ordered by whoever they're selling the shows to. So if that means more Netflix direct kids programming down the line, the production companies will be happy to fulfill those orders. It's the Nickelodeons of the world that need to figure out oh, is Netflix our friend or not here? And
Right.
and if we take our stuff away from Netflix, are we just shooting ourselves in the foot because everyone goes there anyway?
Right. Yeah, and I think part of the solution you'll see for as much as I roll my eyes at smart televisions and stuff, it could be the kind of thing where it's like DVD players and Blu-rays, where it's like it's only after they're pervasive and everywhere do we start seeing every single network come out with their own app for them. You know, whether it's on Apple TV or the Samsung Smart TV or whatever, and to where the kids, you know, they get back to that idea of going to certain channels to see certain content. Because if Nickelodeon has an app that's on every smart TV, then they can pull back from Netflix and say, we're not giving you, you know, we're not letting you access the content and build your brand over there on Netflix. Because that's right now, all my kids know is that Netflix is the magic place where everything is there for them. But if you want to train like, no, Legend of Korra's, they're going to go to the Nickelodeon app on their thing. And I think we're starting to see some of that, but I think we're going to see that consolidation of weirdly, we could be in a situation to where we're going back to the world of the broadcast medium. 30 years ago, there was the big three, and that was it. You had ABC, CBS, and NBC, and you knew whatever television show I would name, you knew would be on one of those three categories. And so we could get back to that as far as apps. We could go back to having only like 3-4 main channels that we go to see all our content.
Yeah, I could totally see a Nickelodeon becoming like not only are we going to have Nickelodeon stuff, but we're going to take all of our Viacom kids programming and put it in. And then we're going to go acquire other things. We're going to get in bidding wars because we have a lot of cash with Netflix, and we're going to stop them from acquiring things. I mean all the bets are off in a way, as when you look at the road ahead.
Right.
Let's move, or shall we slip into the slipstream? Brian, did you watch every live-action Star Trek episode except for The Cage this weekend on Hulu?
Oh, you said the exact right phrase, because I had one complaint about this, and that was the fact that it says that the only thing it doesn't have is the Star Trek animated series, which I totally do want to watch again. But yes, I did not watch all of the live-action ones.
No, I didn't either. Well, these have all – The Cage, which is the pilot episode that never aired. So it's under a different licensing agreement, I think, because of that. And the animated series, which has its own weird licensing arrangements, they're both on Netflix. So I went through a period where I was watching all this stuff on Netflix a long time ago. This did not get me that excited because it was already there on Netflix. But I guess if you're not a Netflix subscriber, but you are a Hulu Plus subscriber, then this is pretty crazy.
I'll tell you what,
man. If you're not a subscriber to anything, it was free until the end of March. So you could watch it anywhere.
There is a whole tier of people for whom paying for things just does not exist. Like, I mean, specifically going behind the paywall. It's like they hear it and they're like, that's not for real. That's not for me. But yeah, having it available for free in a real TV experience is awesome. And
like, hurry before the March ends.
Yes,
watch
basketball.
Basketball. Watch Star Trek.
Now, is there a reason that it was just randomly through the end of this month, or what was the idea with the specific
I think they're
month
just
window?
celebrating. You know, they signed that deal with CBS, which owns all of the Star Trek stuff, and I think they're just celebrating the fact that they're adding this to the catalog by saying, let's open it up, let's make it free for everybody before we stick it in the Hulu Plus section.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, it's good promotion. Have we talked about Viewster before? This is
I have no memory of it, and in fact, we got a ton of email this last week, and so I spent all day doing the feedback. So I did not get a chance to read this story. You'll have to tell me about it.
Yeah, no worries. Viewster is just about to crack into ComScore's list of the top 50 United States video properties, and why that's odd is Viewster is an international purveyor of free video. They started as a B2B business a long time ago, but they pivoted into providing free video that is under international license. So they go around the world and they go, like, let's say they go to India, to the Bollywood producers, and say, okay, yeah, your movies are doing great in India, but you're not selling them at all in Russia, let's say. That's probably a horrible example. Maybe they're huge in Russia. But just for example, then they'll say, can we have the rights for Russia? And we're going to stream them online for free and put ads against them. And the Bollywood people are like, it's great. Yeah, we have no market there. Sure, we'll make a little extra money. And so they go into all of these gaps, and they're like, your anime videos, they're not licensed to Hungary. can we play them in Hungary? And so they've been doing that in the U.S. And the two biggest things they have on there are Indian programming as well as a lot of Japanese anime and things like that. But they've got programming from all around the world that just wasn't licensed to anybody. In the U.S., they snap up and they make these apps, and then they target the folks who like that kind of programming.
Dude, I love this kind of thing, not only for an efficiency factor, the fact that you're monetizing stuff that otherwise would never make a buck, but the fact that culturally, when I was a kid, anime was so exotic and strange. Nowadays, of course, everyone is familiar with at least the conventions of anime. And in many ways, like it helps make the world smaller and makes us more of a multicultural society. So who knows what surprises will come out of this kind of thing.
They have more unique viewers than the video sites of both ABC and Fox.
What? That is awesome. Dude, this is what happens when this is the same reason that we're seeing Hollywood focus on international releases where they're making their movies. They realize that, wow, there's a lot more money in the entire rest of the world than there is just in the United States.
Speaking of having a lot of users, YouTube crossed the 1 billion monthly users mark. That's a nice benchmark for them to reach. But the interesting thing that Android Police pointed out is that 76% of the increase in the Generation C users, which I don't know what the actual definition of, but that's young users, was from smartphone traffic, whereas only a 33% increase came from desktops.
But now keep in mind also that a big part of this was the fact that at least on iOS, they didn't have their own YouTube app. They weren't able to monetize a bunch of the views because of their licensing deal at the time. Nowadays, you're going to see a massive shift to I mean, of course, and as the
arguably that could hurt their stream numbers, though. That could hurt their user number.
Well, what it does do is it certainly opens up the floodgates for them to encourage that use of it a lot more. And I don't know specifically what that would be, but I know that now that there's a reason for them to make a buck off of it, that they want to make sure that more people are watching their stuff on smartphones.
But when that thing was a default app that was just right there on the home screen for anybody who bought an iPhone, that's a bigger advantage to getting views, I would think.
Well, except for that half the time when you clicked on it,
to force you to watch it.
Right. Well, except the problem was half the time when you clicked on it, it says this video is not authorized for mobile devices. Like that's over with now. Now that they have their own app, they're able to monetize it. So all of a sudden, instead of everyone knocking on the YouTube door from their smartphone and being told, oh, this is in a particular category of crap you can't watch on your phone, now they're able to watch it and get the ad to sit through and watch more.
UK pay TV provider Sky has an online-only service, mostly based around movies, but now Sky Sports is a pay-as-you-go streaming service. You pay £10 a day. That's around $15 US, and you get unlimited access for the day. Now, that's great if there's a bunch of things you want to watch that day, like maybe on soccer on Saturday. It's a little high of a price, £10.
I'll tell you what. No, I think it's sufficient. I think that if it's your team and you're in a place where you can't watch it, and the bar won't turn on that particular thing, I think that's a very price. Is it inelastic or elastic? It's inelastic. Like you don't care what it costs. Like just give it to me. I got to watch that game. So I think, especially for like a toe in the water, I think it's a smart move.
Well, that's probably what Sky Sports is saying. We're going after that guy who has to see this, and that works really well in the overseas market, right? I'm a big fan of Chelsea, and I live in Nashville, Tennessee. There's no way I can watch that game unless I pay $20 at this pub. Hell yeah, I'm paying the $20 because I got to see this championship game, and that may be what they're banking on. Although you have other options in the UK. You're not in a foreign land where there aren't any other options. So I don't know if it's that inelastic of a demand when it's like, well, I could go over to my buddy's house, or I could pay £10 to watch it on my smartphone or watch it on my desktop. I still think it's a little bit high, especially when you compare it to the movies are £15 a month. So you're paying.
But movies are different. Movies are different. Like whether or not he defuses the bomb is going to be the same tonight as it'll be 2 weeks from now. Whether or not he makes that goal would be very different. It's at that moment.
How about this example then? ESPN in the UK has an app for £9 per day.
Wait,
now those are a lot of sports that you can't get elsewhere.
Well, I don't know.
Look, conceivably charge a lot more.
Is the question? I'm just going to say like I think we're going to see, especially from sports. Sports is the kind of thing that you can get away with charging a lot more. We're accustomed to pay-per-view events that are way more than you see for pay-per-view movies. So it doesn't surprise me that the price would be higher for sports. And I think that's where it's going to start.
This is higher for sports I can already get cheaper elsewhere.
Not if you're in a place where you can't get it. I'm just saying.
Which is where?
I don't know. Some place where you can't get it.
If I'm in the UK, I could find somebody or some pub that has it. This is a convenience thing.
All right. Yes. Well, look, you're talking to a guy who pays $12 for a tall 20-ounce beer at an airport. You don't need to talk to me about convenience fees. Like, once you've experienced that, $10 for whatever doesn't sound crazy anymore.
I also, I like, who was it that said this, that pointed out that, yes, Loopy Lee says, by that time on Saturday, however, they've had 6 pints, so they'll pay anything.
Yes, good point.
Fairly, I think that pretty much settles that. ABC working on an app to live stream some of their shows, the shows that ABC has the rights to stream. Some of the shows they've acquired or commissioned, they didn't put in an agreement. Like Grey's Anatomy was commissioned long ago. That one might not be able to be streamed live, but Good Morning America would be able to be streamed live. And a lot of their evening programming would be able to stream live on an app.
I predict that very few people will go to this app, and those who go will be frustrated by what's not available. And it's like, it's so weird, man. It's like, it's the same song as we're hearing over and over and over again. Same complaints you have about Hulu's weird windowing, you're going to have about it in a new iteration on a mobile device. Why do you think
they won't go watch something live when it's live?
It depends
because we didn't mention the authentication. Is that why?
What?
You have to authenticate. You have to be a cable subscriber so that they can make sure that the local affiliates get their fees for carriage. So this isn't just an open app for everybody. If it was an open app for everybody, I'd call you nuts. I'd be like, of course people are going to use it. But you do have to authenticate as a cable subscriber. I still think people will use it, though.
Okay. I would love to know those numbers. There's no way they're going to release them because authentication is such a pain in the ass.
That's right. No, you're totally right about that. That's the big roadblock there.
Yeah.
Intel launching a media server.
Wait. You got to say that we're going to go to tube tops.
Oh, right. Sorry. Tube tops. There's only 2 of them, so I almost forgot.
This week it's 2 tops.
I sped right over that speed bump, just like Intel launching a media server reference design to help folks who make home theater in a box type of stuff improve it. Both Atom CE 3500 based hardware with software tools will be available. Now, this is all highfalutin hardware stuff. A lot of you don't care, but what it means is Intel is trying to get some partners on board to build boxes that are going to have the groundwork laid for whatever Intel's television service ends up being when that rolls out.
And we had already talked about how disruptive that could be because Intel's in one of the weird positions where they don't owe nothing to nobody for the most part in the entertainment business, so they don't have to get stuck in any lousy deals and make compromises. And the fact that they're already laying the groundwork for other people, they're setting sort of a base level of quality that you should expect from any, I don't even know what they're going to call the thing yet, but Intel set-top box level device. This is all good news. This means they're very forward thinking and while this seems like a weird, tiny side story now, it could be pretty big a few years from now.
Yeah, it's just something to be, take a note of. Also, Hulu Plus upgraded their app on the Apple TV to be much more like the iTunes app on the Apple TV. So now you get lots of square pictures of the television shows and movies you can choose from. It's a lot more scannable.
That looks exactly like the iTunes app. It looks identical.
And frankly, the Netflix app, which is what the Hulu app looked like before, looks exactly like the music app, which just absolutely sucks for choosing video. So I'm really glad to see Hulu do this. I unpaused my Hulu Plus subscription today to take a look at it, and frankly, it looked really good.
Right on. Well, let's move on to Film Found then.
We mentioned before that one of Amazon's pilots it was considering was a TV adaptation of the film Zombieland, and they have green-lighted the pilot, Brian.
Man, I don't know, man. This is not this is not where I would have invested my money. I mean, here's the trade-off, right? On the one hand, you have the massive, massive success of The Walking Dead, the fact that zombies are still hot right now, although I don't understand why culturally. You have a hit movie with Zombieland. I understand why you go for it. But on the other hand, you have the chance to be disruptive and do something that nobody else could do, and doing something that, for all the world, to me, is going to sound and look an awful lot like a Me Too zombie series. I mean, what are you going to do with Zombieland that ain't been done already? Yeah. I mean, outside of like copious amounts of gore to the level that you can't get away with on television, but it's like you watch The Walking Dead, it's already over the top, and there's context to it. It's not a cartoon.
If it gets picked up, though, Brian, you get to decide.
What? Oh, you mean like
is going to put this up on Love Film and Amazon Prime instant streaming? I think I said all the words that need to be said to distinguish it from the other thing that Amazon has. And fan response will determine whether it gets made into a full season production.
All right. Well, so you're talking about just a single episode, and then you go on from there. Well, good. Yeah. I like the fact that they're giving control to the people.
Put it up. Brian will look at it and go,
although I tell you what, man, I mean, my frustration with the Walking Dead TV show right now. So now might be a good time to try to seduce me to another story.
Well, it's the thing, right? Is it going to be 9 to 5 or is it going to be MASH?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Or is it going to be after MASH? Or is it going to be Ferris Bueller's Day Off versus Parker Lewis Can't Lose? That's the question.
That is the eternal question. Also, the BBC commissioning 6 original dramas exclusively for the BBC iPlayer, their online player. Of course, there's an app version as well as a desktop version. 3 of these will be films. 3 of them will be BBC 3 dramas, but they will be exclusive dramas for the online streaming service. Now, the one thing I couldn't get to the bottom of is whether these dramas will be webisode type things, like 10, 15 minutes, or whether they will be like full half-hour, hour-long shows.
Well, based on the fact that they're doing an article about it, in order to be newsworthy, it seems like they should be full productions, right? Full episodes.
But all the news things say, oh, well, these will be different because they're exclusive. So in the past, they did a Doctor Who online-only thing, but it was with characters from the TV show, kind of a spinoff. These are like wholly created, original for iPlayer, so they're not complementary, it appears, to anything else.
Well, and the real bummer is that I guess there's no the biggest proxy to the quality of this would be the budget they're going to spend on it. And of course, they're not saying anything about how much money they're spending on it. Did they mention any of the talent? I'm not seeing anything.
No, they didn't mention what the actual episodes would be. They just said 3 dramas and 3 films, 3 short films.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, 6 original short films over 2 years, as well as 3 dramas.
Tell you what, man, more and more, it's wait
a minute,
matter where
it's all wrong. It's BBC 3 dramas, not 3 dramas. I keep saying 3 dramas because I see that. It's 6 original short films over 2 years.
Right. So BBC 3 doing 6 short films. You just want to move on to the next story? It's probably the best idea right now.
Trek Into Darkness trailer. Actually didn't have that much new in it, but I still loved it.
Yeah, man. So I'm at the point now where it's like I'm already sold. I'm all in on it. Totally going to see the movie. Really excited about it. I feel like it's all downhill from here as far as it's just spoilers, because the more of the stuff I see, the more of the story I try to piece together in advance. And this is one where I'm so obviously going to go no matter what that it's like I only stand to benefit the less I know going into it.
Well, yeah, it's funny. The Verge has the story that we're showing here on the video. Jeff Blagden, his last line in the article is, "Somehow we doubt this will be enough to tide us over until the May 17th release." And that kind of indicates the same thing you're saying, Brian, which is like they've got the hype level up where we'd like to see it now, please.
Yeah, sure. But guess what? We're not going to get – in fact, I almost wonder if they could. Has there ever been – I don't know if there's ever been a precedent of this where it's like – the hype was so high that at the last minute they moved the schedule up by a month or whatever. I guess there's other longer term
move. You piss off all the theater owners. The distributors don't like it because of the logistical nightmare. And it's a big risk because you usually pick your weekend very strategically based on what's not coming out as well as what is coming out.
But like, what if like right now with the hype machine in full swing with J.J. Abrams getting Star Wars and so on, it's just like screw it, we're gonna do it right now. Go play the movie. I mean, that would be pretty huge.
You know why it's not going to happen?
Why?
Beef.
I'm sorry, beef?
Yeah, Beef in the chat room. He says, looks like a lame action movie. Do not want. They would be like this close to doing it, and then they'll see Beef's chat, and they'll be like, oh, never mind.
Like,
keep it
someone on the internet doesn't approve of my artistic endeavors. Well, forget it. I'm going home.
I blame autocorrect.
There you go. Hey, man, so have you watched the Reddit Explain It Like I'm 5 series?
I did. I watched all 3 of them. I was entertained. I didn't think they were that good on content.
It's tough because you could tell there's kind of 3 audiences that they have to deal with. There's the fact that there's people really do want to learn about existentialism and have it explained as though you're 5, right? So, which of course is the value of the Reddit threads upon which these are based. There's also we need to make an entertaining 3 to 4 minute video that people will continue to watch, which means there has to be some kind of interaction or some kind of question that keeps you watching the entire thing. Unfortunately, there's this third vector where they really are in a room and they really are teaching stuff to 5-year-olds. And if you've ever been to your kid's kindergarten class, watching 5-year-olds learn, not the most entertaining thing on planet Earth.
I actually was entertained by this because they did a good edit job of like, hey, cute kid moments. My problem was actually the opposite. My problem was like, I've seen that Explain It Like I'm 5 threads on Reddit, and they're actually much more informative than these videos.
I guess that's the problem, right? Is at some point you're serving 3 masters with 3 different goals, and I feel like no matter what, you're left wanting more of one thing or the other.
So in Syria, they say, sorry, those are taken. You get to be a garbage man.
Garbage man.
We
for
need
you.
garbage men.
Well, what ended up happening was Hafez al-Assad died, and his son Bashar took over. Everybody thought that when Bashar took over,
this part where this actually is one of the few clips where I'm like, okay, this seems to be of the subreddit. Well, you know, Reddit is not claiming that this is actually a replication of the threads. It's merely inspired.
Oh, sure. No. It's yes, correctly. Definitely inspired by it. But it's a noble experiment for sure. I'm looking forward to watching more of them.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to what's premiering this week.
This week! This is what's premiering this week! Check it out!
Hey, Tom.
Yeah, Brian.
I was going to go camping this weekend because there's nothing really interesting happening this weekend by any chance.
You're not interested in Stitches with Ross Noble and Tommy Knight?
I mean, that sounds pretty good, but I mean, like,
or the
television.
host. The host is coming out March 29th. That's that.
I think I'm just going to go camping. I'm going to go camping. Maybe make a fire.
All right. Well, give me a call. Let me know how the camping's going. Don't call me Saturday evening though, because Doctor Who, it'll be out, and then and Sunday evening there's a season finale of Walking Dead and Game of Thrones season premiere. So I'll be kind of busy.
What? Dude,
Sunday.
This is a huge weekend, man. I'm super stoked. I'm super stoked. Since the last Doctor Who, my kid has gotten into Doctor Who, and which of course got me back into Doctor Who. So I'm super stoked to experience that with her. And of course, Game of Thrones. There's not did you see the article where George R. R. Martin admitted he needs to be writing more and faster? He's like, yeah, I should probably speed that up.
I did. I saw that, and it's sort of like, having read as many articles with George R. R. Martin as I have, I was not surprised to hear him say that because he says that in every article.
Sure, of course. Yeah, including to your face.
It's a constant for him. He's like, I really should be writing more on those things. Sorry about that, folks.
Yeah, man.
Having fun.
So normally this is the part of the show where we would oftentimes talk about what movies are coming out because of the NSFW show movie draft, which we're sort of throwing together last minute this year. We do have the slate finalized. It's going to be me, Tom, Justin Robert Young, Scott Johnson, C. Robert Cargill, author of Dreams and Shadows, and of course Sinister, and Sarah Lane. And did I mention Scott Johnson already? Because I think I'm up to 7.
Sinister Sarah Lane, yes.
Sinister Sarah Lane, yes. But I believe the current plan is to do it tomorrow. We got to get everyone in the same place at the same time. So we'll see about making that happen. Pay attention to our Twitters if you want to play along with us. NSFWshow.com/draft, I believe, will be where you can sign up and make your own slate. We'll keep you guys posted on all that.
And just a note for folks, I don't know how it's gone under the radar as much as it has, but Hemlock Grove coming to Netflix April 19th. That's not that far away.
You know why? Is because it's horror. Horror is like this bastard stepchild of cinema, where it's like a half step above pornography. It's for those people who are into that kind of thing. And we've been lousy about not. This is Eli Roth's thing that, by all accounts, looks pretty rad.
And it's an original. It's just like House of Cards. It was made for Netflix. So there was another beat in between House of Cards and Arrested Development, and that happens April 19th. Let's talk about what we're watching.
What we're watching.
You know, if it weren't for Walking Dead and Archer, I would in fact be living in a cord-cutting universe.
Really? Those are your last threads?
I keep DirecTV around for two reasons. One, because my wife wants it, and that she has good reasons why she wants it. The other is that I like to know what they're doing. I like to be able to see what at least one example of the old world is doing, because they're doing a lot of nifty things with DirecTV on iPad and some of that TV Anywhere stuff. But I've been watching all of my hockey on the Roku. I've been watching all of my baseball on the Roku. I can watch Arrow on my iPad and AirPlay it to the Apple TV, and sometimes that's just easier than dealing with the DVR. And I just finished a marathon of watching all the episodes of Futurama on my Roku. So the Roku and the Apple TV have been getting the workout from me.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, same thing with the Netflix for me. I just, like, this afternoon, to be honest, like, while Home Theater Geeks was on, I had like 20 minutes before we went live, and I noticed right there on the front page that Always Sunny in Philadelphia has 7 seasons available on Netflix. So I just started, I'm just going to watch a little bit of episode 1, and I think I've decided to replow through that entire series. But also watching Downton Abbey, and I feel like I lost a bet or something. Like, I am by no means the type of person who should be liking this show, but I'm definitely sucked in. That's my guilty pleasure after Bonnie goes to bed and I got an hour to kill. I'm like, oh, I want to watch a little Downton Abbey. But somebody suggested I check out a documentary on Netflix called Kumare, Kumare. It's about it's directed by a guy from New Jersey who's disillusioned with religion. He goes to a religious college and is super annoyed at the way people invest all their faith in these random fake gurus. And the more of these gurus he meets, the more disgusted he becomes. So he goes to Arizona, grows out a giant beard and long hair, and he's of Indian descent. So he just tries to talk like his mom with a thick, Hindi accent, and basically makes up his own religion that's about, it's got yoga and everything's an illusion. Like, he flatly says several times throughout the documentary to his disciples that everything is a lie and he's a faker, and everyone just smiles and goes with it. And it's amazing. The way everything comes together at the end was positively electric, and I'm surprised at how much of this movie has really stayed with me. It gets a little bit dull in the middle. There's a couple of things you could tell that they just liked too much to cut, although it could have been cut for the story that we cared about. But I highly recommend it. I had a really good time. Kumare, Kumare. Check it out and let me know what you think on Netflix.
And apparently the chat room very excited to watch Orphan Black, which is also coming to BBC America. So lots of stuff. Doctor Who and Orphan Black, both.
Yeah.
Let's do some feedback. Kuhan?
Now it's time for feedback with Brian and Tom on Frame Rate. Oh, yeah.
This one's very flattering to you, Mr. Brushwood. It's to Brain and Tom.
You know what? That's the one thing about having the name Brian is every time it's misspelled as Brain, I'm always cool with that. I'm like, thanks, bro.
Yeah, that's right. That's me. Enjoying the show via podcast. Heard the story on the record growth for Twitch. This likely has everything to do with Twitch joining Facebook and YouTube and being fully integrated into Call of Duty Black Ops 2 back in February, and features streaming directly from the game servers. Came to mind because they also made it a profile completion requirement for Call of Duty Elite, the stat tracking application, which I pleasantly found a bit annoying. Thanks, Will Frisco from South Jersey. Great points. Yeah, those integrations, especially the Call of Duty Black Ops 2 one, we must have boosted their numbers. I can't imagine.
Yeah, and this is interesting, too, because we've talked about how remarkable it is that people like watching other people play games. So on the one hand, you've got this massive growth because there's this unrecognized need in entertainment that people have that's finally being met in an easy way. But also there's this like training of the populace, both on the content providers and the content consumers. You're inventing your own category of television right now. So it makes sense that it would be massive growth right now. We also had a video question. Chad, are you able to play this video question that we got here?
Absolutely.
Let's roll the
Once I hit play.
Let's click the button.
On frame
And
on
here it
frame
comes.
rate, oh yeah. Hey, Brian and Tom, thank you so much for having me on Frame Rate. I am a big fan. Love the show. As a cord cutter, I am so happy to see the NCAA streaming every single March Madness basketball game. It has been awesome. Streaming sports is like the biggest pain for cord cutters, and so it's great to see the NCAA stepping up. However, as I've been watching the games on TBS and TNT and CBS on the streams, I'm not seeing those local ads from my local CBS station or my local cable company. Same thing a month ago when I was watching the Accenture Golf Championships on NBC. I don't get NBC on my rabbit ears here. And so I was going online to see if I could find it, and the Golf Channel was streaming it. But again, I was not seeing those local NBC spots. So my question for you guys is, how soon does streaming become so popular that the local stations start saying, hey, wait a minute, our local spots aren't airing, and that's hurting our advertising? And again, I would argue for, why are these guys fighting Aereo? They should be embracing Aereo. Anyway, love the show. Thank you so much again for having me on. I'm going to hang up and listen to your answer.
I like how he tried to give us a chance to pretend like he was live. And I'm sorry we didn't take it. That was,
we should have, now that I think about it.
I totally boofed that. But yes.
Well, I was going to say the most interesting part of his whole question is the Aereo thing, and I had never considered that angle. That the local affiliates, by fighting Aereo, are essentially working as hard as they can to cut the only lifeline that's going to keep them relevant in the changing face of digital markets when it comes to media like this.
Well, as soon as 2009 is when they will start complaining. They've been complaining for a long time, since before Hulu, frankly. But it reached a fever pitch with the launch of Hulu, and ABC particularly did a lot of management with local affiliates to get them to sign off. One of the things the local affiliates get the right to embed the Hulu episodes in their pages and do a little bit of rev share. That's a salve. That's not a solution. Also, if you notice, when you watch Hulu ABC content, you will see a watermark for your local ABC station wherever you are. So in Austin, you're going to see the Austin station's watermark. Here, I'm going to see the LA watermark. It's another one of those agreements. They've got a lot of work to do with the local affiliates every time they want to change the way they do anything with Hulu, anything with ABC.com. I'm assuming with this live streaming app, they had to do a lot of reassuring. The reason that they're battling Aereo, though, is because the local affiliates say, maybe I'll get this much more money out of Nielsen from the people who watch Aereo, and I get this much out of carriage fees from cable. And so I want to keep that protected. I want to keep the cable people on my side because I get all this money from them. And you're right, Brian, long term, this could be their lifeline, but short term, they can't afford to embrace it.
Yeah. All right. So we got one more. You remember last week, you and I went back and forth. I did continue to do a terrible job of explaining what it is I was looking for. An example of half the emails we got were people just naming stuff that was obviously parody. The question, of course, being, is it possible that something that starts off as a parody like School of Thrones could become its own independent thing where it's increasingly difficult for it to hide behind the shield of parody protection? And Ken sent in one email who actually restated better than I stated my situation. He says, Brian, you're not crazy in this instance, which I like the qualifier on that. Thank you, Ken.
By the way, at first I thought he was a total troll. I thought he had written, Brian, you're crazy in this instance. And I was like, do we really want to read this? And then I went back and read it. I'm like, oh, no. He says you're not crazy. Okay, that's good.
He says you're not crazy in this instance. I get what you're saying. I think School of Thrones is different from a typical parody. The School/Game of Thrones relationship is more analogous to Clueless and Emma, or Lion King and Macbeth. I wouldn't classify Lion King as a Macbeth parody. Does Pride and Prejudice and zombies count as parody? Because I'd love to make a Star Wars movie featuring zombies. Of course, there is no copyright to violate in any of my examples, but no, I don't think you're crazy. That's what it is that difference. Like, at what point do you use the shield of parody to justify something's existence? And while, yes, a bunch of people are like, what about Weird Al? He does other people's music. And it's like, clearly they didn't understand where I was going with. Some of the good examples we got is Keith says as the show. Here we go. Keith says the show is Harry Potter and the 10 Years Later. It was a 7-episode series with a new story about the actual characters in the Harry Potter series. Unlike the Chad Vader thing, they call it a parody in their description, but that seems like an attempt to cover their asses. There is humor in it, but it also has a compelling story that, in his opinion, goes far beyond parody into the territory of extended universe content, which brings a new wrinkle, because I didn't think about the distinction between what I was saying in the context of parody versus the world of fan fiction. Like, fan fiction is definitely illegal content that some people take a blind eye to as long as it benefits the brand as a whole. Another example, Lou says, Brian and Tom, as a father of an 8-year-old girl, I would direct Brian to Disney's The Wizards of Waverly Place, available on Netflix. Overall show is a ripoff of Harry Potter. So far, so good. But somewhere there's a multi-episode plot line set at Wizard Tech, which directly parodies Harry Potter, with evil wizards plotting the takeover of the wizard school and a made-up sporting event. They then use the characters and situations from this parody later in the series in a non-parody story, leading up to a long continuing story to wrap up the series. So, in other words, what was supposed to be a one-off parody episode where they could afford to venture into that stealing other people's content territory eventually became part of their own canon on the show. And then another example is somebody, pink5.com is the adventures of essentially like a Valley Girl pilot who happened to be right along the side, all the Star Wars stuff. They use all the Star Wars clips chopped up for it. It's parody, but eventually came on and had its own narrative of its own. And in fact, the character the girl who plays Pink 5 actually showed up in a novel that Timothy Zahn wrote in the expanded universe. So there are cases where something that was supposed to be a one-off of parody eventually became canon and murkied those waters a bit.
I think Beatmaster has a great idea. He says we need a comment from Chad Vader on this issue.
Maybe he'll write in. Maybe he'll send us a video
or send us
to
a
comment
video.
on it.
If Chad, if you're listening, or if anyone knows Chad and can make him aware of the situation, we'd love a video from Mr. Vader himself commenting on this issue. All right, that is it for this episode of Frame Rate. Thank you all for rating the frames along with us. We couldn't do it without you.
Actually, we totally could. It's great that you watched us, though.
I was like,
in fact, that's what we used to do. Is the two of us would just have these discussions, and you wouldn't bother to watch. Now you're bothering to watch. So I guess lucky you. That's all we're trying to say.
If you could do this, tell 3 other people to watch. That's all. That's the only cost. There was no added to the show. So
to triple our viewers.
All right,
don't forget, if you guys want to send in stuff, framerateshow@gmail.com or fr@twit.tv. Thank you guys so much. You're looking very tall and attractive today. I love you.
Yes, we love you all. Drive safely. Ride us. We'll see you soon.
This is what happens when we continue to vamp while we make music. There it is.